Hey everybody, it's me, Root Beer, and it's been a while, hasn't it? Look, there hasn't been that much to talk about recently, you know? Like all of the new reveals have been Token Ranbu. I don't care that much. We don't even know when we're gonna get the new Token Ranbu set, but Bushiroad so kindly decided to reveal the new Krysrain on my birthday, so we get to react to it. And also, I guess Lianorn's here, so we can talk about that first. So, Lianorn got a new ride line. We have Racing Wind Corfi, so this is a new version of the Grade Zero. Then we have Budding Sensation Gracia, the new version of the Grade 1. When it rides on top of the Grade 0, you reveal the new Lianorn from your ride deck, call a plant token to Rearguard Circle, and then on Rearguard Circle, during the battle, it boosted if your Vanguard's in Unison Dress, it gets 5k. Bushiroad saw everyone playing the Rora ride line and were like, okay, fine, you can have Rora in Lianorn. Then we have Hopeful Tune Rectina. So, a new version of the Grade 2. When it's rode upon by a Grade 3 with Lianorn, choose one of your Vanguards, reduce the auto ability by Counterblast 1 until end of turn, and then on Rearguard, if your Vanguard is in the Unison Dress state, this unit gets boost and can intercept from the back row. Then we have Bandmaster of Blooming Dreams, Lianorn Traumend. So, it has the Unison Dress ability. It just gets Unison Dress, so no more waiting for turn 4 to make some of your cards come online. And then, as continuous, all of your rear guards with Lianorn in their card name gets boost and grade -2. And then, when it attacks while not boosted, stand all of your back row units with the boost ability, boost this unit with them. If you boosted 3 or more, Counter Blast 1, Energy Blast 2, it gets Drive +1, and then you perform one of the following at the end of the battle. Either stand 2 of your back row rear guards, or if your opponent's grade 3 or greater, choose one of your rear guards, stand that unit and this unit until end of turn. They get Power plus 10,000, Drive -3. Then you can put a card with Lianorn in its card name from hand or rear guard circle into Soul, and they also get Drive +1. So 4 total if you're restanding the Vanguard. So this is an interesting card. It's kind of offering an in-between of Vivace and the old Lianorn. One of the problems that Lianorn has is like your turn 3 is really weak because you're not in the Unison Dress state. Some of your cards don't have all of their abilities, and Lianorn being an older card just kind of doesn't do anything. Like, okay, she's really big and gets an extra drive, and you have to like discard a card for the extra drive too. Like, that's not great. So this is kind of offering to fix that by, actually doing something, especially going second. Going first is kind of still the same as the old one, but at least you're not having to discard a card anymore. And it has that additional benefit of like turning your Lianorns into boosters, so if somehow you're just bricking on like 5 Lianorns, you can actually do something with them. And so the bigger thing, of course, is it gives you something to do going second. With how powerful the meta is right now. Imagine playing against like Heart Luru, where they can make like 4 attacks. Vanguard has like an extra drive or something. And they're all like really big numbers. The rear guard gets like a crit. So dealing with all of that and then being like, okay, so I'm gonna make 3 attacks, but my Vanguard's really big and has drive +1. Like, that's not great. So, the fact that you can now make 5 attacks going second, it's like, alright, losing the coin flip doesn't feel nearly as bad anymore. That being said, I do wonder, like, how much this is offering over riding into Vivace for turn 4 onwards. So, the benefit that this is giving you over Vivace is that you get the ability to Persona Ride, and the fact that it's 10k instead of 5 means if you're Persona Riding, you are getting overall a net 15k benefit over Vivace, who only gives +5 on restand. And so, overall, just kind of bigger numbers. But the thing is, Vivace doesn't really have a huge problem with numbers because of Rosarium Fairy. So, Rosarium Fairy is a grade 1. It can copy the power of something in the back row when it attacks, and, the current state of Lianorn is that you are just trying to buff up your back row as much as you can, so that Rosarium Fairy can just copy a big, huge back row unit and become big and huge itself. And because you're going to be attacking like 6 times, you're just like, Okay, copy the back row, Rosarium Fairies like 30, 40k or something. Attack with Lianorn, who's also big, huge, and then you restand your front row +5. Okay, Rosarium Fairy copies the back row again, becomes like 40, 50k now with the extra boost. Plus any like triggers you get can increase in value because you're like, okay, give it to the back row, and then Rosarium Fairy can copy it. And so, like, the deck doesn't really have an issue with power, and it did get me to think, like, is Rosarium Fairy's design kind of holding Lianorn back? The fact that the utility of this new card is that it gets you better number trading off for one attack, but the thing is, like, if you manage to find two Rosarium Fairies, Vivace is just better, right? Like, I don't think the extra 15k power is comparable to just getting a 6th attack that's like 40, 50k if it's Rosarium Fairy copying a massively boosted rearguard. So, it did get me thinking a little bit, like, is this card a problem? Like, has Lianorn kind of hit its ceiling where, like, the numbers are already about as big as it's going to get? It already makes, like, 6 attacks, which is on the higher end, especially because, like, getting those 6 attacks doesn't require any kind of elaborate combo. Like, you know, could getting rid of Rosarium Fairy maybe resolve some issues of like design space? Could it give Bushiroad more to play with? And could it give Traumend some more value? I'm not saying that Rosarium Fairy like should be banned, but it was just something to think about? And obviously, you can just play both. This new Lianorn already wants you to be playing other Lianorns anyways for the extra drive ability. So, a lot of the early lists I've seen are still playing like both versions, but they're only playing like maybe one or two of Traumend and then still like 3 or 4 Vivace. So, it does seem like Vivace is still the preferred ride target, but this at least gives you a viable plan B. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed those musings about Rosarium Fairy because they printed a second one. So, when it's placed on Rearguard Circle, this is Artful Display of United Hearts Mollmoire. So, when it's placed on Rearguard Circle, choose up to one card with Unison Dress ability from your hand. If you revealed or your Vanguard is in the Unison Dress state, Counterblast 1, draw a card. Soul Blast 1, call a plant token. And then on attack, if your Vanguard is Unison Dress and your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, choose one of your back row rear guards. Increase this unit's power by that unit's power. It's just a second Rosarium Fairy. Like, what do you want me to say about this? Like, I just had, like, a couple-minute discussion about, maybe, like, the design of Rosarium Fairy is, like, holding back Traumend from being able to succeed, and then they just printed a second one. Like, alright, whatever. Alright, on to the more interesting thing that I actually care about. The faded one of ever-changing Krysrain Cadenza. So, act once per turn, you can counterblast 1, choose any number of your units, and perform one of the following. If you chose 4 units and all of the chosen units have different names, perform 2 instead of 1. If you chose 5 or more units and they all have different names, perform all of them. Draw a card, energy charge 3, that's the same as always. Choose one of your units, gets plus 15k, that's also the same. This unit gets critical +1 until end of turn. And then choose one of your rear guards, and it gets auto at the end of your turn, you may return this unit to hand. So this is the new effect that they've added onto Cadenza over the old Krysrain. A very minor upgrade, but a useful one nonetheless. It means, like, in order to fulfill the, like, 5 different names, you now have more flexibility in just kind of calling garbage, like triggers or PGs. But, in the cases where you do have an ideal hand, it helps you protect your board against things like removal. Buff Saga is still a very powerful deck. If you happen to be playing against the, like, 3 people who play Artisaria, then you can like clear your own board and avoid getting locked. Things like Blangedmire, so you're not permanently losing some of your cards. All very good stuff. It's a very small upgrade, but a useful one, and I appreciate that they're giving these kinds of utility upgrades to cards instead of just, okay, the number gets bigger, okay, you get to make more attacks. And then the Divine skill. Auto Vanguard Circle. At the end of the battle, this unit attacks a grade 3 or greater. Soul Blast 1. Choose any number of your rear guards. Return them to the hand. Choose up to 1 unit card from your hand. Call it to Rearguard Circle. And until end of turn, increase or decrease that unit's power and critical to match this unit. So, old Krysrain just blanket bounce back the entire board to your hand. So unfortunately, you couldn't really make 5 attacks. As the deck got more support in the future, they started getting other ways to like call during the battle phase. There was that grade 2 from I think it was set 5 that's like Soul Blast 2, call a grade 1 and it gets 5k. So like that did work with the divine skill and got you 5 attacks, but it was like a really awkward play. You had to play this one specific grade 1 that was like a rare that was like on play. I think it was either Counter Blast 1 or Energy Blast 3. I don't remember which cost to gain like 10k or something. So it's like, okay, if you go through this very specific combo, then you can make like an extra attack that's like 33k. And that was decent, but kind of awkward that you had to set up for the extra attack on the divine skill turn. And it also means like having to dedicate deck space to those cards. And so with this being able to choose anything, now you can just use Rochelle. Rochelle is the triple R grade 1 that you just Energy Blast 3, put it into Soul, and then it just like restands something. So, now instead of doing these like awkward setups, having to devote extra deck space, you can just do what the deck is already doing, but better. So again, this is just a nice like quality of life update to Krysrain. Very nice. I appreciate this. If you remember all the way back in set 1, Krysrain was a deck that I was very interested in, and I've always been kind of sad that she's always been just kind of so, I don't think this necessarily changes her place in the meta because, like I said, a lot of the changes are just utility ones, making the deck a little more comfortable to play. The ceiling is still pretty similar to where it was before. Like, you could already make 5 attacks on the Divine skill, it was just awkward. So, very nice. I like this. And then we have a support card for Krysrain, Emphatic Lime Armelle. So when this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle, you may Soul Charge 1. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Krysrain in this card name, choose one of your units and gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. Then you can Counterblast 1, draw a card, and this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. And then act Rearguard Circle once per turn. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Krysrain in its name, and you played an order this turn, cost Energy Blast 3. Choose a grade 1 without Sentinel from your drop zone. If you don't have a Rearguard with the same card name as that card, call it to Rearguard Circle. This is a custom card. So, in the anime, I don't believe they showed the second ability. They only showed the first one, where it's like, okay, on play, Soul Charge 1, and then it gave like 2 things 5k. I don't exactly remember if they mentioned the draw part, but I think they might have. But, the point is, they only showed this first ability, which is more or less just like a slightly better Veilfur, if you remember that generic triple R. Being able to give 2 things 5k power, although one of them is just itself, and then getting an extra draw, plus the Soul Charge 1, which is something Krysrain does need. I mentioned that grade 2, that's like Soul Blast 2, search a grade 1 from your deck. Like, that was already pretty good on its own, and then they just pulled, like, a reverse Draconis. So, with Liel Draconis, they showed the, like, discard a card and bind something to get the extra drive, but they didn't show the Energy Blast 4 card cost for it, so when we saw the actual card reveal, it was just like a horrible surprise that completely deflated my excitement for the card. This is the complete opposite. They revealed an entire second ability that's also just extremely broken. Like, what do you mean you can just revive any grade 1 from your drop zone as long as you don't have a second copy? And it's Energy Blast 3, a cost that, like, doesn't matter in the deck that energy charges. Like, this card's crazy. So yeah, I'm a pretty happy camper as far as Krysrain is concerned. I kind of stopped giving a shit about Lianorn quite a while ago. I did play it very early in its lifetime, like back all the way in like set 7 when it got Resonance Dragon, and then set 10 when it had the mask version. And then around the time Vivace came out, I kind of fell off of it. But Krysrain has always been a deck that like I've wanted to like, and I've been really interested in going back to it recently. Once they showed it in the anime, I'm like, why don't I go back to Krysrain for a little bit? I haven't actually tried it with High Five yet. And, they surprised me with like some of the best Krysrain support we've ever seen, so it's great. I don't know what else to say. Like, I'm really happy with this. I cannot believe they just printed this busted ass custom card. Again, I don't know if this is necessarily going to save Krysrain, but the fact that you can now pretty consistently get the extra attack off with Krysrain, where even if you run out of Rochelle's in the deck or your opponent retires a Yuika or something, you can just bring it back. So it gives you way more flexibility for your early discards. Gives you recovery against removal decks if you somehow couldn't get Yuika off the board. It's great. I'm very happy right now. Anyways, that is going to be it for this video. If you leave a comment. What do you think about the new support? I know Krysrain is kind of the less exciting of the two archetypes. Lianorn has kind of been one of Bushiroad's golden children in the last couple of years. But what do you think about Traumend? Is it good? Do you agree with my random musings about Rosarium fairies? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.